So if you made it this far, you probably watched my first couple of parts based on how to design your flag as such. Now, if you haven't, I would highly recommend go watching those videos because it will benefit you a ton when we get into having to possibly modify our designs or make some fixes here. So as you can see, I have all of my parts already designed up, ready to go. The idea here is that we've glued this all kind of together. It's ready. What we're really going to concentrate on now is creating the wavy shapes here, as well as cutting out our patterns for the stars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and first I need to scale this up. So keep in mind when we first drew this in my other videos, it's 1 inch by 1.9 inches. So let's scale that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here and we're going to say modify scale. I'm going to just window drag and highlight everything in this window. Makes it much easier to select. It will take a moment because there is a lot going on. And now if I want a 24-inch wide flag or tall flag, I just type in 24. It's kind of the nice thing about being able to set this and then use F6 to zoom out. So now we're about 24 by 36 or 2 foot by 4 or 3 foot. So I am pretty happy with that size. So let's go ahead and jump over to the manufacturer side of things. Now, in the manufacturer side of things, this is where we're going to create our actual setups and create our ToolPaths to go out and run something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just go to setup. I'm going to make sure I'm selected milling. And now I need to tell the software which direction my Z and my X is. I like to just use a flat face for Z. So I'm going to pick something on the bottom and then I'm going to check flip Z. I'm very happy with how my X is faced, but I could also pick a face or an edge to set that X as well. Now the location of this, I'm not so much happy with. I would rather use like a bottom left corner. So I'm actually going to say my stock point is that bottom left corner. Given that we've table sawed this all, we've cut everything, we've glued it together, I'm presumably going to guess that the outside is square at this point. So we could go ahead and jump to stock, and we're going to say fixed size box. Now, if we look down on this, 46 inches is a little bit longer than our current actual material. So let's go ahead and say instead of rounding up by 0.5, let's round up by 0. Now, this allows me to set a specific height in Z, as you can see here. So I'm going to 2.25. However, now my part is floating. So what we may want to do is we may want to offset from bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to plug in 0, which means we're going to slam that part down flat against the table. So if Z height is off the table, my XY is off the table, my part is now down and possibly held by either vacuum or double stick tape. And just like that, we've actually created our setup to be able to manufacture. Now, I did miss a step, and this is something I love about Fusion, is it comes in and it tells you when you actually are messing something up. So I'm going to go ahead and say no. And just like that, it's actually going to go out and grab my model. In this case, I am going to actually select my model manually. And the reason for that is, as you guys can see here, I actually have a couple of things turned off that I don't want to mess with from when we initially designed this. So again, I use the shift key to bulk select those couple of items. And now that they're selected, we can minimize what we have here. So the first thing is going to be is let's machine in that kind of wavy design. There's a lot of different ways you could do this, but the easiest way would be is if I could rough out the part with a bigger cutter, I'd probably go pocket cutting in wood. However, let's say we have a little less capable CNC machine. I'm actually just going to use parallel, and I'm going to run a parallel cutter back and forth across this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to define my tool, and I'm just going to pull something generic from the Fusion crib, and we're going to go with a ball end mill. I'm going to start a little beefier here with like a 1/2 inch radius cutter. Now, you are going to figure out what your speeds and feeds are on your machine. I'm going to actually come in here and I'm just going to use aluminum roughing for a lot of what I have going on. But that being said, is now what's going to happen is based on a silhouette of our part and our tool stuck on center, I'm going to actually go ahead and hit OK and see what we get. So what you're seeing here is we actually are getting a warning again, as you saw before when we created our setup. So we do have the ability to jump there and fix that. So we didn't want to do a 1/2 inch ball with a 1/2 inch step over. What I wouldn't mind doing is maybe let's go like 100th step over here. So what we're now going to see is we're going to actually zigzag back and forth across that part, creating that wavy feature as we machine down. So again, that might be a little bit much on your machine. This is a simpler way. Again, if you have to take smaller speeds and feeds, littler bites, smaller tooling, by all means do so. But as you can see, we're now running back and forth across this part and knocking everything out of the way. The only problem that I foresee, though, is when we created these extrudes, we now have those extrudes that are kind of in the way and cause problems. Now, it's up to you whether or not you change those out, but as you can see, we're dipping down in those, and it's actually causing quite a conflict with that tool. So if we could go back to the design side of things. Again, there's a lot of things we could do here is we could back up our design tree. One neat trick you could do here is we could actually create in the surface area. I'm going to do a offset surface, and I'm going to do it based on where all those stars sit. Now, if I pull back forward, what you're going to notice is now we have the extrude going on, and that extrude isn't actually affecting that surface. So again, as if I go ahead and hit F6, you notice how it's over the holes, but if I turn it off, it's no longer over the holes. But now I need to move everything forward one more time. And what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to edit my scale. So I went ahead and double clicked that. And what I need to include in that scale is that surface. So I'm just going to pick it over here on the left. And as you can see, it jumped up automatically. And again, we could toggle that on, toggle that off as needed. So let's jump back over to the manufacturer side of things, and let's go into this toolpath. So again, we're dipping in there currently, and we don't need to do anything crazy to modify those stars. What I could actually do is go to geometry and say model, and then in my design tree, let's go down to that surface 20 body, and then let's hit OK. And what you're going to notice is we're no longer dipping into those stars. So that was a really quick, easy way to use my timeline to fix such a simple problem. And to kind of see how this is going to run here real quick, let's go ahead and do a simulate with machine. And I'm going to hit play here. And of course, we are getting a collision out the start because we are diving in on this lower corner. But once we're inside that profile, you're going to notice we're running back and forth. Let's slow that down a little bit, but we're going up and down in Z, and we're carving out that part slowly more and more. So again, I do have my accuracy turned way up, which will cause, what seems like a lot of issues and takes forever to calculate. However, it's not a big deal. Again, in the world of woodworking on something like this, I trust it. We also have in-process stock turned on to help us out. So let's go back and let's cut our stars out now. Now, there's a lot of options for the stars, and it's really going to come down to what you want to accomplish. But I'm going to go for the engrave toolpath. I'm going to go out and I'm going to select my tool. So there's a lot of different tools in Fusion for engraving. I'm going to actually go out and just use maybe a 1/2 inch 90-degree spot drill. This is just kind of like a mitered corner tool. I now need to go through and pick my geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick each one of these edges. And what this allows me to do is I'm not going to do all of them for the sake of time, is I'm telling the software what I want to cut. Now, if I move over a little bit further to my passes tab, it's going to basically plunge down and cut these into a kind of a reverse star profile, as you're going to see. And it's going to carry that all the way down to center or to the maximum depth that it can. So as you're seeing there, it's actually cutting that kind of star shape, just not all the way to a point. So we could fix that, though, by going back into that toolpath. And what I'm going to do is in my heights tab, I actually have a top height and then a depth. So if we actually increase our depth here, I'm going to say -0.5. You're now going to notice that that star profile always goes down to a full center kind of profile. Again, we could select all of these to achieve that for each and every one. Now, what we're going to do from here is we're actually going to basically cut grooves between each one of our stripes and around the outside of our entire profile and everything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to 2D. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a trace, because remember, we have this waviness in our flag. So we need to do that trace profile to follow that Z curve. So now it's up to you how you're going to pick these edges. Again, I'm just going to use the outside edge here, and I'm just going to run down and around each one. We will get a little bit of doubling up, but keep in mind, because we're constantly either climb or conventional cutting, this will actually help us to create a nice, pretty profile on both sides of those miters. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually add in a axial offset. I am going to drop this tool by 50 thou, and let's go ahead and hit OK. So as you're seeing now is that tool is running around. And again, what you're seeing here is the part in the background, because we never modeled that, but we are actually tracing all of those edges around our part. So again, as you're seeing, my stock is updating here. And if I actually take those two toolpaths and we simulate that, what we're going to get is the ability to simulate and see what the outcome is here. So again, we have that model turned off in the background. If you want it turned on, you could have it turned on. But let's go ahead and hit play. And again, as you're seeing, we went in and we cut out that star profile. And we could do that time and time again based on our entire part. And then as we move over here onto the other side, again, we're now cutting our individual actual flag profile out for all of our different stripes. Nice thing is Fusion actually is predicting where it should and shouldn't go. And again, it kind of reduces a lot of those paths from being double. Right there, we did see a double path just because it wanted to run the length of the part. But again, as this wraps up and kind of cleans everything up and you guys are seeing this, is if you guys have any questions about this, feel free to shoot me an email. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. As you can see, it's really not that difficult to get in and start playing around with Fusion and doing things like this. And as always, have a great rest of your day.